treat. I'm actually going to have my functional specialist, Dr. hop on. We're going to answer some of the most common questions you guys have on detox, inflammation, mold, symptoms, protocols, supplements, PCOS, things that a lot of us deal with on a day-to-day that nobody talks about. And a lot of people have problems with that nobody can answer as to why. And so we're going to deep dive into a lot of that stuff. It's going to be a quick live. It's not going to be long. But I'm super excited for you guys to kind of just sit in, ask questions, please, if you have any. And we are going to start. Okay. Yes, let's party. Okay. Can you hear me?
Hey, Francesca, how are you doing?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
I'm super excited. Everyone's excited. We've got tons of questions.
Okay.
And so, you guys, we're going to kind of dive right into it. As you guys know, you guys have been following my journey of this whole mold detox. And so, I think the first question that I get asked, and the biggest question is A, why do I have so many different supplements throughout this process? Because as they know, my supplements change through different phases of this detox, which is why I wasn't able to share with you guys every supplement because it's specifically customized to me, what's going on with my body. So you can let them know, Matt, if you want to introduce yourself, but
Yeah.
also that first question is why so many supplements that are changing throughout the process?
Yeah. So, to answer that question, we're addressing a lot of different things at once. Some of the supplementation is specifically to help minimize symptoms.
Right.
Some of the supplements are to assist in the detoxification process. Some of the supplements are to help support your immune system. Some supplements are to reduce inflammation. Some supplements are to address the GI dysfunction,
Right.
the imbalances in your gut microbiome, the leaky gut, to assist with nutrient absorption. There's a lot of different factors happening at once. If someone's looking this at addressing the singularity thing,
Right.
they're not going to have
Yeah.
success. And if they're only looking to address symptoms, they're not going to have long-term success.
Right.
So it's a multifactorial process with multiple phases that reduces chances of discomfort or negative reactions,
Yeah.
and that also ensures long-term success.
Right.
Because people have to realize they didn't get into dysfunction overnight.
Yeah.
So they're not going to get out of it overnight. There's no one singular pill or supplement or even medication to take that's going to remedy everything that's happened.
Right. Guys, and just so you know, I'm that person that would email Matt and be like, I have these headaches. What do I take to get rid of them? Like right now. Or I need to do this. I need to get rid of it right now. And he's like, no. He's like, here's things that you can do in the meantime. And so I know a lot of you guys want the supplements and you want me to tell you, here's the supplements, go buy them. But it's a lot bigger than that. And something that you guys have asked me is what has the mold exposure caused me other than that? And so correct me if I'm wrong, but did that lead to the leaky gut and the gut dysbiosis? And now we have to treat that as well?
Yeah. So what a lot of people have to realize is mold toxicity is a stressor or burden on the body. Everyone needs to zoom out the lens and take a much broader picture of what's happening to the body to better understand.
Right.
The issue is stress and toxic burden, whether we're talking Lyme disease, whether we're talking mold exposure, whether we're talking heavy metal toxicity or environmental toxins, which is our food quality
Right.
and pesticides and our water quality. All of these things are toxic burden. Then you also have infections, you have inflammation,
Right.
you have mental health stress from PTSD or trauma.
Yeah.
You have physical stress from overexertion,
Yeah.
or lack of sleep and recovery. All of these things lead to survival adaptations. The problem is we don't look at these things as positives. Survival adaptations are symptoms:
Right.
high blood pressure, high blood sugar, erectile dysfunction, insomnia, anxiety, mental health struggles,
Yeah.
autoimmune disease, sex hormone dysfunction, irregular cycles, PCOS, endometriosis. These are symptoms of survival adaptations due to stressors.
Right.
And it's not just one stress, it's the accumulation of various stressors. So, toxic burden is a chronic stress that then leads to a snowball effect of adaptations in the
Right.
body. Gut dysregulation, leaky gut, imbalances in the gut microbiome, these are adaptations to stress.
Right.
When your body enters a fight or flight state, one of the first adaptations is shutting down blood flow to the gut, sending more blood to the brain and the limbs. This is to support fighting or fleeing a
Right.
situation.
Wow. Okay.
Because of that shift in blood flow, it shuts down a lot of processes in the gut.
Yeah.
We stop producing bile acids to break down fat. We stop producing stomach acid and digestive enzymes to break down protein. This slows down digestion. This slows down movement in the gut, hence
Yeah.
constipation and slow motility. This leads to the accumulation of waste, which then festers and turns into bacterial overgrowths.
Got it.
So it's a snowball effect that leads to the overgrowth of pathogenic bacteria. And then the more stress that occurs, the more this adaptation just snowballs.
Yeah.
And then that in itself becomes an internal stress. And we just accumulate from there.
Over and over. Right. Okay. So something that you touched on that I think is probably the biggest in my community, aside from the detox, is this whole thing with women around whether it's coming off of birth control, debilitating periods, and then the whole PCOS thing. I feel like PCOS is like a thing that women say now that it's like a buzzword or a tagline or like a thing to like badge of
Yeah.
honor. And so I know we've talked about PCOS, but kind of explain when someone says like I have PCOS, what does that mean? What should they be doing differently? What should they be looking for in terms of like, is this fixable? What am I doing wrong? How do I fix this? Because then it turns into acne, different symptoms like that.
Yeah, so PCOS is such a multi-layered conversation. First of all, majority of the time, PCOS is a diagnosis of symptoms, not the actual root cause of the problem.
Right.
Okay. So first and foremost, to truly, PCOS is also often
Okay.
misdiagnosed because they're paying attention to symptoms, not the root cause of the problem.
Right.
So first and foremost, you need a proper diagnosis. A true PCOS diagnosis requires three different things,
Okay.
all different lab diagnostics. So first and foremost, the presence of ovarian cysts via ultrasound. That's number one. The next two are from blood work. You need high blood sugar and high insulin resistance.
Yeah.
You also need androgen dominance. That means high testosterone, high DHEA, high DHT. If these three things aren't all tested and confirmed, that's not an appropriate diagnosis. That's
Wow.
just symptoms.
Got it.
So once those three things are confirmed, then you have to get to the root cause of the problem. And the root cause of the problem is typically stress. Because majority of women's androgen hormones don't actually come from the ovaries, they come from the adrenal gland, the same gland that produces cortisol.
Right. Wow.
So
Okay.
if she's already stressed and the adrenal gland is overproducing hormones, it can accidentally start overproducing too much DHEA, testosterone, and DHT.
Okay.
That's going to lead to masculinizing symptoms, more facial hair, more
Yeah.
acne, maybe some receding hairline, more body hair. and also a lot more muscle. That's why we see women like Venus and Serena Williams, who are insanely great athletes and borderline questionable if they take PEDs.
Right.
They just have naturally high androgens.
Okay.
The insulin resistance piece really plays into the body composition equation and why so many women are so swollen and kind of box like in that type of stature.
Yeah.
Insulin resistance leads to a lot of body fat accumulation and a lot of inflammation.
Got it.
Insulin resistance is another symptom of chronic high stress. Again, a fight or flight adaptation.
Wow.
In order for your body to fuel itself to fight or flee a situation, it raises its own blood sugar and keeps it there in the bloodstream as a survival mechanism. So high stress, high inflammation people always have high blood sugar. And high blood sugar leads to higher insulin and insulin
Right.
resistance. That's why they can't bring it down. That's why they're so reliant on GLP-1 agonists like semaglutide or tirzepatide or
Yes.
metformin. But a lot of times metformin and those GLP-1s don't even work. The stress is that high that those drugs don't even work.
So with that stressor, with those stressors in the body or the stress in the body, is that caused from, like, if someone were to say, okay, so how do I reduce the stress in the body? Is
Yeah.
that another type of, like, well, we have to find out where that's coming from?
Totally.
Okay.
Well, and there's a third piece there, the ovarian cyst. That's also a result of stress. Because when we look at hormone metabolization pathways in a woman's body, progesterone is a precursor to cortisol. So as cortisol goes up, it steals women's progesterone.
Oh,
So every single woman in that situation has low progesterone, and without progesterone, they have irregular
right.
cycles. The irregular cycles then lead to the presence of ovarian cysts and improper tissue formation or lack of tissue shedding, which leads to endometriosis. These are stress responses that have caused a downstream effect on fertility and sex hormones because a high
Yes.
stress environment is not a safe environment for fertility. The body knows this. So the body is adapting to survive. And we
Right.
all think that these are terrible things that are happening to us. But it's the stressor. So to your point, we have to get to the root cause of the stress. In order to get to that root cause, we need diagnostic testing. Maybe it's just GI dysfunction because you can have a lot of different infections
Right.
and imbalances in the GI tract. But maybe it's something deeper than that. Maybe it was a tick bite that led to Lyme disease when you were 6 years old and no one got to the bottom of it.
Right.
Maybe it was mold exposure when you were working 20 years ago in an old school or an old prison. I had a
Right.
prison guard who had mold exposure. So mold exposure can be past or present in a living environment or working environment.
Wow.
If you are chronically exposed and your body may not have been able to detox it properly, you can still be living with that 20 years later.
Yeah.
So toxic exposure, and to a level where all Americans are exposed.
Well, I
Pesticides
was
in our
literally
food,
about to
water
say,
toxicity, pollution.
yes, someone commented on one of my TikToks and said, you know, like, sorry to break it to you, but we're all, exposed to mold. And I'm like, nope, I get it. But there's a level of exposure that becomes unhealthy, not normal, right? Okay.
Absolutely. Everyone needs to not look at stressors as singular events or individual situations. Think of it more that we have a bucket of stress. And when that bucket starts to overflow, that leads to disease and dysfunction.
Right.
So various people can handle different toxic burdens or different levels of stressors based on their genetics, their ability to detox, their gut health. There's a lot of different factors there.
Yeah.
That's why two people with the same issues may not have necessarily the same symptoms
Yeah.
or the same feedback on blood work or anything like that. We all have various levels of toxic burden and various other stressors.
Right.
20% of Americans have a gene mutation where it's basically genetically impossible for them to detox.
Oh,
So
wow.
what are they supposed to do? Without the proper supplement or medical support,
Right.
they are going to accumulate toxins without even knowing it. And by the time they're in their 20s, they have hormone dysregulation, autoimmune disease, thyroid dysfunction, and severe mental health issues because they don't have vitamins, they don't have folate, they don't have any of these
Right.
things necessary.
And lastly, and then we'll go on to the next question. I know we talked about this on our call about autoimmune
Mm.
diseases
Yeah.
and how that seems to be another big buzzword of like, I have an autoimmune disease. I have an autoimmune disease. I have an autoimmune disease. Is that the same thing kind of like in the PCOS situation? Like an autoimmune disease is a diagnosis of symptoms versus what cause or is causing the autoimmune disease?
Yeah. And not to get too much on the soapbox, but what people have to understand about Western medicine as a whole, Western medicine is by design is designed to diagnose and treat symptoms. They're not looking for the root cause of the problem.
Right.
There's a lot of various reasons for this, but the number one reason that that system isn't changing is because big pharma benefits from us staying sick.
Right.
So treat the symptoms, but don't treat it too much because we want to keep that
Right.
money
Coming
flow
back.
coming. So with regards to autoimmune disease, a lot of this is lack of deductive reasoning. So first and foremost, what is autoimmune? Autoimmune means we have an overactive immune system. Okay. What
Okay.
would cause an overactive immune system? The things that the immune system primarily addresses is toxic burden, inflammation, and infections, foreign invaders in our body.
Okay.
So therefore, it's safe to say anyone with an overactive immune system most likely is dealing with toxic burden, inflammation, or foreign invaders, infections in their body. A lot of this is coming from the gut because leaky gut allows pathogenic bacteria and fungi and parasites to escape the gut and enter the bloodstream.
Wow.
Then
Okay.
those things travel throughout our body, and our immune system starts creating antibodies to attack these
Right.
things. But most of the time, these antibodies end up attacking our own cells instead of attacking the foreign invaders.
Wow.
That's autoimmune.
Got it.
No one is using enough deductive reasoning to go back to that cause and effect. Instead, they prescribe immunosuppressants to just reduce the antibodies.
What even is going on? It's like I don't even know. It's just crazy. Because there are just so many things that that fall into that. Okay. So another thing that people want to know, which is probably my next biggest question, is A, if they want to know if they have mold exposure or toxic burden in general, what do they do? What kind of tests are they asking for? Obviously, you're not going to get it from your normal doctor. I've tried every doctor under the sun, you
Yeah,
guys, so it's not that way.
yeah,
But then, number two, let's say right now they don't have the funds to do that.
yeah,
What is the biggest question is how do I detox at home or my home if I feel like I have mold
yeah.
exposure, but I can't afford the testing right now? How can I at least keep myself at bay, per se?
So the big thing with mold is number one, the very first step, as you know, is figuring out the source.
Yeah.
Is this past or present? Is this work or home? If if you do not remove yourself from the source, you're wasting your time.
Right.
That's like filling up tires with air just to keep driving over nails.
Yeah.
You cannot detox if you stay in the environment. So, no matter what functional practitioner you find, that is always step one, removing
Right.
yourself from the environment. You should see a ton of progress simply just from getting out of the toxic environment.
Right.
As you noticed, even when you went like shopping or spent a day out, you felt a lot better. And then
Yeah.
as soon as you got home, you felt worse.
Yeah.
So simply leaving the environment is the best, cheapest, low hanging fruit option to feel better. So first you have to find that source. Is it past or is it present? And if it's present, you have to
Gotta
address
go.
it.
Yeah.
You need inspection, you need remediation. You know, this is an investment. Getting healthy, unfortunately, is an investment one way or another. To that point, with regards to mold detoxing, the gut and the liver are your detoxification pathways.
Right.
Every mold detox process requires gut healing.
Yeah.
So you can't look at this as singular. If you have mold toxicity, you are guaranteed to have infections and imbalances in your gut microbiome. You're guaranteed to have leaky gut. We don't know if you have an overactive immune system, precursor to
Right.
autoimmune, or if you have an underactive immune system that needs a good bit of support. We don't know where your inflammation is. You could have 8 pounds of inflammation, you could have 30 pounds of inflammation.
Wow.
That inflammation's got to go in order for your immune system to improve and for you to be able to detox. There's so many layers to this. There's no simple step.
Right.
The simple step is removing yourself from the environment. Trust me, that's the simplest
Yeah.
step, as you can tell.
Yeah.
The testing is somewhat important so that you're not wasting time and money.
Yeah.
You could do a broad spectrum treatment plan based off of symptoms. But you're going to take a lot more supplements and possibly do unnecessary steps for weeks or maybe months. You could also not address everything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different types of bacterial overgrowths in the gut. There's Candida, there's H. pylori, there's SIBO, there's parasites, there's E. coli. There's a lot of different things that may or may not need to be addressed. And again, there's different factors that you may not know about. Without comprehensive blood work, it's hard to gauge real improvements.
Yeah.
You'll get rid of symptoms and still have at least 50 to 60% of a treatment to go.
Wow.
Symptoms go away fast. That doesn't mean you're healed.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that people have to understand is real healing takes time.
Right.
And it's multifactorial. We're not just taking supplements. We also need to address your nervous system.
Yeah.
Because your nervous system has now been in a chronic fight or flight state, and that's led to HPA axis dysregulation, meaning misfiring of adrenal hormones, misfiring of sex hormones, possibly misfiring of thyroid hormones. 85% of thyroid dysfunction comes from gut issues.
Wow.
So there's a huge gut component involved in heavy metal detoxing, mold detoxing, Lyme disease treatment. This is why so many people think that Lyme disease can't be remediated. Yeah, if all you're doing is taking an antibiotic, that's not treating Lyme. There is a
Right.
huge process of fixing the gut, removing toxins, addressing the nervous system and bringing down stressors, possibly vagal nerve fixing, which is
Right.
the main nerve that plays into gut health and your fight or flight response. There's a lot of different factors there.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So on the topic of like the nervous system, two people had pointed out that I had said multiple times. Obviously, I had the allergy symptoms, which was the stuffiness, congestion,
Yeah.
whatever. But you guys, if you don't know this, that for 10 months, I felt like I was waking up and walking around in fight or flight. I would wake up, I felt like my heart was racing, but it wasn't. I would take my BPM, it was fine, but I felt it. Um, I was super on edge, super moody. My sex hormones or my libido, I would say, was like non-existent. What part of the mold was that from? Is that from mold itself, or is it like a mild toxin and that's the part that goes after like the mental health stuff, or does it depend on the person?
So almost all of it just goes back to fight or flight
Okay.
adaptations, realistically. Now, when we talk about sinuses and allergies, the mycotoxins are directly impacting that because we've breathed it in. And now they're trapped in our sinus pathways.
Yes.
That's going to affect our eyes, our ears, our nose, our throat,
Right.
everything. Um, so everyone is exposed to mold. There is mold everywhere.
Yeah.
Mycotoxins are toxic, dangerous forms of mold.
Okay.
That's
Got
that's
it.
a separation as well.
Okay.
So what we're talking about is mycotoxins specifically. What we tested you for was not just mold in general; those were mycotoxins.
Okay.
So you had high levels of toxic versions of mold.
Got it. So, go ahead.
Go ahead.
One more question. I wrote it down over here,
Yeah.
but I want to make sure I say it correctly. Okay. Last thing, as far as the biggest questions, and this might have anything to do with mold, but it was a question I got from both audiences. We as women have been taught and told that like the debilitating periods, like on the floor, throwing up, fevers, they call it the period flu, is just part of being a female. I'm like, that's just how the body works. And obviously, I was on birth control for 10 years. I have been on it for 4. I've realized that's not common. It's not normal. And
Yeah.
so a lot of women kind of bond over the fact that they can't lift their head off a pillow
Yeah.
when they get their period, and that's not normal. So when someone is experiencing that, I guess first off, what could be some of the causes of that? And then where do they go to fix that, or how do they fix that?
Sure. The leading cause to those symptoms is low progesterone. So that's what we refer to as estrogen dominance.
Okay.
And estrogen dominance can happen in one or two ways. You can either have clinically high estrogen, maybe due to poor detoxing, because estrogen is detoxed through the gut and the liver and excreted out with stool.
Right.
Or you could have low progesterone, and oftentimes that's simply due to stress. Now, ironically enough, the mechanism of action of hormonal birth control is to crash progesterone.
Yeah.
That's how it prevents ovulation and fertility. So the solution that they're offering is really just masking the symptoms of dysfunction. But sooner or later, you're going to pull that mask and realize just how dysfunctional you are.
Yeah.
But 85% of female society is estrogen dominant, one way or another.
Oh wow.
If anyone can Google symptoms of estrogen dominance after this video, and they'll be like, yeah, that's me. Anxiety, sleep issues, weight loss resistance, extra
Right.
cellulite storage,
Is low
water
libido
retention.
one of them from birth control as well?
So some birth controls can actually affect testosterone as well.
Oh.
But most often, low libido is due to stress.
Right.
Think about it in fight or flight responses. If you were being hunted by a tiger in the jungle, you probably wouldn't be thinking about sex.
Right. True.
That's how our body always thinks. Everyone just kind of needs to simplify things down and look at a much broader scope of why their body is reacting a certain way.
Yeah.
The problem is, like you said, society has normalized dysfunction. So no one even realizes that they're messed up.
Right.
But irregular cycles is a sign that you don't have good metabolic health and fertility. And the main reason for that would typically be due to stressors.
Yeah.
And stress can come in so many different forms. Maybe you're under eating and not providing your body enough nutrients. A lot of teenage girls fall into this category of over exercising and under eating, and they dysregulate their own hormones.
Yeah.
But if you combine birth control with over dieting and under eating, and then you add in some traumatic relationship experiences from narcissistic boyfriends,
Yeah.
by the time they're 25, they have a shitstorm developing of gut issues
Yeah.
and thyroid issues and sex hormone issues.
Yeah. I think you guys, that's something that a lot of you guys have asked me about as far as the female thing. But I feel like a lot of what we've talked about here all boils down to, and I know there's different forms, but stressors on the body,
Yeah.
and figuring out what is causing those stressors instead of treating those stressors.
Yeah.
You have
That's
time for one
typically
more?
what a good, legitimate functional medicine specialist should be doing with you. Your consultation should not only be reviewing diagnostic testing, but backtracking in your history and doing what I call finding the breadcrumb trail. When did your symptoms start? Okay, let's look 1 or 2 years before that. What happened in your life?
Yeah.
And we can typically unpack a lot from getting that snowball effect and just backtracking.
Right.
And although that doesn't necessarily always change the treatment plan, it certainly gives the patient
100%.
validation for all their symptoms over the past 10 years, where most physicians probably told them that they were
Yeah.
crazy.
No, literally, you guys, just to give you an example, do you have time for one more question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I have time.
Okay. Really quick, you guys, for example, the mold or my exposure, what was going on in my body was causing the debilitating anxiety. I just want you guys to know the first thing that my doctor prescribed me was something called Klonopin. And I said, no, I think that's like a horse tranquilizer. I never took it. But you guys, if I never kept looking, I would still be sitting here like I'm going insane. Something is wrong with me because no one, that's not their job as far as getting to the root. And so if you guys are on here, and a lot of you guys have been in my DMs about, I've been feeling this for months. They keep telling me this, they keep telling me that, but you haven't went the functional route. Like it changes your life.
Yeah.
And it could save your life. Like all of it when it comes to that.
The
So
thing that people need to realize too is it's not, there's good physicians and bad
yeah,
physicians for sure. But generally speaking, when we talk about Western medicine, we're not pointing fingers at the doctors and
right,
physicians. We're pointing fingers at the system. Who writes the med school curriculum? Big Pharma.
right.
So doctors learn what they learn. They spend a total of like 30 days in their entire med school learning about nutrition. Have you ever walked into a doctor's office and been like, wow, everyone here looks really healthy?
No,
No, they're the least healthy people in the world because they have terrible sleep schedules because they work night shifts all the time.
right.
And they eat cafeteria food. They are the most unhealthy people in the world. And they're also the most bought into the big pharma cycle. Every nurse I get is taking like 5 different medications for her various symptoms. But that's the way it's set up. If you come into their office, the thing is too, doctors see over 100 patients a day.
Right.
They don't have time to dedicate to unpacking your history and looking at the full picture. It's also set up in silos. You have one doctor for high cholesterol, one doctor for high blood sugar,
Yes.
one doctor for anxiety, one doctor for irregular periods. Nobody's looking at the full picture and connecting the dots. That's not how our system is set up.
Right.
There's so many different reasons that Western medicine is failing people, primarily women. And it could take us 5 hours to unpack all the different reasons.
Yeah.
But most of the time, if you go into your general physician's office with symptoms, they're going to do their best to treat your
Yeah.
symptoms, and that was your case with the anxiety.
Right.
But yeah, that, unfortunately, you can't really rely on them. At the same time, you do have to tread with caution in the functional medicine space
Yeah.
because, to be honest, we're still in this new space where Western medicine physicians and practitioners, and even dietitians and chiropractors have noticed I can make a lot of money by titling myself
Right.
X, Y, Z. And I see people come from functional specialists all the time, and it was 100% Western medicine treatment.
Right.
There was no deductive reasoning. There was no root cause. They did a GI test and then didn't treat the infections.
Wow.
There's a lot of shadiness in that industry. So
Yeah.
I won't just say go blindly towards functional medicine. There are snake oil salesmen.
Of course.
You have to do your homework and find reputable people. And unfortunately, the more reputable, the more you're going to be invested.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Okay, last question. This was probably, I saved it for last. The biggest overarching question is, if someone wants to, they feel like they have inflammation, they have stressors, etc., and they're not ready to go any which way yet. They just want to start taking steps in the right direction, whether that's with small diet choices or things of that nature. I feel like women are very prone to be like, this influencer said this probiotic is good, so I'm buying this, and they're taking like 27 supplements
Right,
that they don't need.
right.
So if someone has inflammation and they want to just kind of start taking the steps to a healthier lifestyle in general, is the first step with the small diet changes, or is the first step going to get the testing to see where you start?
I mean, a better diet is always going to lead to a healthier body. What I always talk to people about as part of their process, as you
Yeah,
know, but it's the cheapest things too, because most of them are free.
yeah,
Separating controllable stressors from uncontrollable stressors. Okay, uncontrollable stressors are things like our job, our relationship, our kids. We can't up and leave that tomorrow, so we
right.
can't like just remove those stressors.
Yeah,
However, our controllable stressors, that's a different story. Those are our day-to-day actions and choices. Our caffeine and stimulant intake, our alcohol intake, our water intake, our food choices, our sleep schedule, our exercise intensity, frequency, and volume, our cardio intensity, frequency, and volume. That's 7 things in our control every single day.
right.
The problem is we're emotionally attached to the bad things,
Yes,
whether that be the alcohol, the overexercise, that spin class 7 days a week, that CrossFit class 7 days a week, whatever those things are, pull those stressors back. Those are all free.
right.
Those are all free changes that cost you nothing and will significantly improve your symptoms almost immediately.
Yeah,
As far as the diet goes, try to make better choices. Don't go crazy with any type of extremes. Vegan, carnivore, keto, those are all extremes.
yeah.
Just try to eat less seed oils, less processed food, less refined sugars, um, animal
What
proteins,
about
and
the people who say, like, I feel better on the carnivore?
that's because they have GI issues and
Right.
autoimmune issues. They're reactive to high fiber and prebiotic foods, which is feeding bacteria in their gut, causing more inflammation.
Okay.
So, by eating only animal proteins, they're essentially starving that bacteria and reducing inflammation and allowing leaky gut to heal and what have you, and that's leading to their skin
Right.
improving, their mental health
Right.
improving, weight loss, blood sugar. All those things are happening due to re, uh, healthy reactions due to what's happening in the gut. But the gut was the
In the
problem.
first place.
Yeah,
Because so many women will say, guys, I started a carnivore and like my skin literally clearest it's ever
yeah.
been. But it's more so because of the gut issues that are being healed, not the actual food
It's the
itself.
same thing with keto over the past 20 years. There's so many people who say, I'm just a bad responder to carbs and I do way better with keto. If I even look at carbs, I blow up and gain weight.
Yeah,
That is a direct sign that you have infections in your gut. Totally.
got it. Okay. So for me, example, because people have been asking how I feel, on the whatever. Um, I feel like I have the energy of a 5-year-old, pretty much. Would you say, just with my diet alone, I know there's supplements, but with the diet alone, is it because there's less inflammation, so my body is working less hard? Or like, how does the diet that I'm on specifically correlate to really, I feel like I'm 100% better. I know I'm not, but
Yeah,
that's how I
sure.
feel. How does the diet play into that?
Yeah, so it's definitely an anti-inflammatory diet. We're
Yeah,
not doing anything that would be reactive with leaky gut. We're also not avoiding any type of high fiber or prebiotic foods that could react with the small levels of bad bacteria that you had
yeah,
present. So those are big changes. Our microbiome plays a huge role into our mitochondria and our energy and our mental health and our cholesterol and our blood
right,
sugar. All of these things are controlled by our gut microbiome. So as we improve the gut microbiome, we can see tons of different improvements happen.
right,
But really, what we've done so far is just avoided more negative from
right,
happening. We haven't even truly gotten to the process of real improvement yet in your case. We're just avoiding further damage so far.
right.
Um,
Would you
the other
say
factor
also,
is too, we do have you on stress and nervous system support,
yeah,
the chill factor. That has several different ingredients known as adaptogens that reduce anxiety, reduce cortisol, and help your nervous system handle stress a bit better.
yeah,
that plays a huge role into that energy and motivation and drive, and also your ability to fall asleep and stay asleep at night.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that plays into it too. But the diet is a big factor if your gut is reactive. So that
Right.
can be different person to person, but a healthy diet is always going to make you feel better.
Right. Okay. Really, this is the last
No,
question.
you're fine.
Because I would post pictures of like either breakfast, lunch, or etc. And obviously people commented on the portion size.
Mhm.
And something that I think I realized is even though I was eating healthy,
Yeah,
I think I was eating like way too
yeah.
much during a sitting because I'm still full, but I think, do you, as far as portion
Yeah.
size, is that also something, whether it's healthy or unhealthy, that people are unaware of? Because I feel like now I'm like, oh my God, I was eating so much. There was no need, but I definitely was.
Yeah, well, that also played into some of the things we saw on your GI results. We saw that some of your nutrient absorption markers were a bit off.
Yeah,
So if we're overeating, whether we're talking about excess protein, excess fats, excess carbs, that's causing burden on the gut because the gut can't process all of
right.
that. So by for a few different reasons, you probably were just over consuming in
Yeah,
sittings, but we intentionally kind of limited your portions and spread those portions out throughout the day properly to make it as efficient on your gut as
yeah,
possible to process and absorb that food and have healthy digestion. And you notice significant improvements in your digestion as well
yeah.
because of those strategies.
Okay.
Human beings weren't meant to be grazers. We're not meant to snack and or just have like one giant meal a day.
Yeah,
We're better off having smaller, more frequent meals,
right,
but that's kind of been taken to an extreme over the past 20 years, and people are doing too many frequent meals.
right,
We see a lot of people in the fitness industry eating like 6 to 7 meals a day, and that's actually too much and too difficult on your gut to process because you need at least 3 hours between meals just to get to cover the previous meal.
right,
So realistically, 4 to 5 meals a day is going to be the sweet spot for 98% of people.
right. Okay. There you have it, you guys. So tell them, obviously, people that follow my journey are super interested. Obviously, they've watched me so far and they're going to continue. And if they're looking for someone reputable, obviously, that's where I lead them, to you and Rise in general. So if they're interested, where should they find you? Where do they DM you? Where do they go to find you and have more info?
Yeah, they can definitely message me on Instagram. My Instagram name is Matt underscore the body tech. They can also just move if they are confident that they want to move forward. They're welcome to just go ahead and go to the clinic website, which
Okay.
is www.risehrt.com. That's RYZEHRT.com. Fill out the medical form, let them know what you're interested in exploring, and my admin will help take them through the steps of ordering the proper diagnostics. And if they have questions, we can kind of help them through that decision making process.
Right.
We do 10-minute discovery calls where if they have further questions, we can do that little breadcrumb trail and kind of unpack, do they need mold testing? Do they need Lyme testing? Do they need comprehensive functional blood work
Right.
that looks at their adrenals and their thyroid? Based on their symptoms and their history, we help them decide what would be best and kind of go with whatever works with them. And from there, we'll set up a consultation. They can also check out some of the supplement line that
Yeah.
you're utilizing through uh, over half of your protocol, and that's called Pure Factor
I
Formulations.
think
That's
heel factor is my favorite thing. I gave it to my dad too, and he's like trying to take the bottle home in a suitcase. I was like, dude, no, first of all, but he's a he has gout
oh, okay.
and things like that. And so I'm like a freak. I'm like, no more NSAIDs. Like I'm like a psycho. And he's a big like, do these really work? Whatever. I'm like, well, try them and you tell
Yeah,
me. And we're walking around and he's like, Jess, I think they're working.
yeah.
I'm like, I know they're working. But heel factor is probably one of my favorite.
It's an awesome supplement. I'm super proud of it. I don't even know if I told you, but I co-own that company, and I've formulated most of those products specifically because of the last 7 years involved in functional medicine.
Yeah.
Not to mention the 13 years involved in fitness. I wanted to bring high quality compounded supplements because the biggest issue we see with the supplement world is they might have like one or two good ingredients, but you
Yeah.
still end up having to buy multiple products
Yes.
just to get the job done.
Correct.
Or they limit the dosage so much people don't even know better. They're taking 5 times too little. Glutamine is a great example of that. Most people, if they take glutamine, they're doing like one little scoop. That's 5 grams.
Right.
In order to actually fix GI issues, you need 30 to 40 grams a day. In order
Wow.
just to maintain a healthy gut, you need 10 to 20. So
Right.
that means you're doing 2 to 4 scoops of your typical glutamine a
Wow.
day. And I guarantee most people aren't doing that. So when we made ours, we made it a 10-gram scoop. So we
Yeah.
doubled the dose so people didn't have to do as much. It's just little things like that where we kind of went the extra mile to actually make them good. But I love Heal
Me
Factor.
too.
It's an awesome product. And it just has so many different applications, whether it's headaches, PMS pain,
Yep.
back pain, whatever it is, it works.
Yeah. I love it, you guys. If you guys, even if you're just interested in cleaner supplements, if they have questions about the supplements, can they
Yeah,
still same thing, like reach out and ask about it?
absolutely. Sure.
Okay. Also, you guys, the link is also in my bio. It's the first link. That's the medical form if you guys want to check it out. If you guys are still scared, I know you guys are going to be in my DMs after this, so I will direct you to, the website or Matt or whoever. But thank you so much for this. I know
Yeah, it's
there's
my
definitely
pleasure.
going to be another 30 questions that I
I'm
get
sure.
about whatever we said here, but I'm excited to continue. I'm only, I think this is day 11, so got like 100 more days
Yeah.
to go. But I'm excited, and we will definitely do another one soon.
Yeah, I'm super excited as well. And let me know if people do have more questions, you can refer them directly to me too.
Yeah.
And the thing I'll say too is keep in mind that there really is no obligation.
Yeah.
You should invest in blood work once a year
For
regardless.
sure.
And if you think you have these symptoms, whether it be IBS or IBD or Crohn's, you need GI testing. Those are labels for symptoms.
Yeah.
So whether it's GI testing or toxicity testing, at least invest in the knowledge,
Mhm.
get a consultation, and decide if you want to move forward. There's no obligation to move forward once you get the testing.
Right.
You can hear us out. You can decide whether or not that makes sense, or decide to work with someone else. We're very transparent in our thinking patterns and process.
Right.
But it's never a waste of money to get the answers, to get
No.
to the root cause.
Yeah. You guys, if I can tell you one thing just based on how I feel this short of a time in, I would have done this 10 months ago if I ever thought it was mold. That was my problem. I never thought it was. And so if you guys are like me, where you're at a dead end and you're like, I don't know what else to do, every doctor's saying I'm fine, all my normal tests come back fine.
Yeah.
I highly recommend just to check it out and be open, because it's life changing just to know, like he said. So
Well, the thing
I appreciate
is,
you.
too, let me just chime
Yeah.
in
Oh my
one
God.
bit because you
Go
just
ahead.
brought up like a great point. Your general physician's job is to keep you alive.
Right.
Your GP's job is not to fix your mental health, fix your metabolic health, and help you lose 20 pounds for summer. It's not to fix your sex drive. That's not their job.
Yeah.
They see over 100 people a day. When they look at your blood work, there's one question going on in their mind. Is this person in an immediate state of disease and dysfunction? And if the answer is no, everything looks fine.
Right.
They're not trying to optimize your health. They're trying to prevent you from death.
Yep.
So you have to have realistic expectations of what your general physician or any Western medicine practitioner isn't looking to do with you. And the thing about the reference ranges on blood work in Western medicine, these are reference ranges of the average population.
Yeah. This
So that
was
means the
crazy.
healthy and the sick. We don't want to be compared to a sick population and say we're normal. That's not good. 60% of Americans are obese. Do we really want to be normal in that society?
No.
That's not a good ratio.
Right.
So in functional medicine, we take those same markers, but look at a much more optimal view. Sometimes that's completely different reference ranges,
Yeah.
such as women's hormones. Sometimes it's just more less of a broad view, such as cortisol, for example, or
Yeah.
thyroid. We just take that reference range that they use and bring it in a lot more to a much more optimal setting.
Yeah.
So
And it's working.
there are a lot of, almost every case, they're going to tell you everything looks normal because they're just looking for green. They're not actually analyzing markers to be suboptimal, and they don't have time for that.
Right.
So again, it's all about expectations, and just because a few physicians have said everything is normal, that doesn't invalidate the fact that your body is telling you otherwise.
Yeah.
Symptoms are check engine lights. Something is going on to cause those symptoms.
Right. 100%. I'm excited. Again, you guys, make sure you guys reach out to me or him, and we will direct you to the right place. And we will definitely do one again soon. Maybe when I hit like middle of my journey and my detox process and how things are going.
Sure.
But yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for doing this.
It's my pleasure. You have a great night.
You too. Bye,
Bye.
y'all.